How many people woke up happy this morning? How many people are getting there? Just keep breathing. Just keep breathing. That's how we get there. We just keep breathing. That's how we get there. We just keep breathing and keep moving along. Keep moving along. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. If you didn't wake up happy this morning, you'd be happy by the time you leave here. Because we do have the rose blessing today, and that is such a powerful, sacred time. So I invite you to just open to it and open to receive the blessing. Open to receive the blessing of God's love in our lives. So this month, we're talking about a transcendent practice. Transcendent meaning that which is superlative, according to Ernest Holmes, that which is beyond, that which is beyond the normal. And a transcendent practice that we're talking about this month is spiritual mind treatment, our form of prayer, affirmative prayer. And there are 5 steps to treatment, as we talked about last week. As you know, recognition, unification is the second step. 3rd step is realization. 4th step is gratitude. And the 5th step is release. And that sounds good, just to be able to rattle all those off. And the real trick to spiritual mind treatment is learning to live it. Learning to live treatment in our lives each and every day, each and every moment of each and every day. That's where the power is. The power is in the ability to speak our words, but the power is really in the ability to live it every moment of every day. And Holmes says that the approach to treatment has to be simple, direct, and spontaneous. And I'm saying that it has to also be simultaneous. All 5 steps are not to be lived seriatim. They're to be lived simultaneously, all at the same time. All at the same time. Always opening up, always recognizing God wherever we go, whatever we're doing. And that's what we talked about last week, the first step of treatment being recognition. How many people practiced recognition this last week? How many people are thinking about it? How many people are going to do it this week? You still got time. You still have time. Just because you didn't do it last week, you can always catch up. We can always start from right where we are. There's no reason to say, like we do on diets, oh, I messed up now, so this is Sunday night. I guess I'll wait till Monday, and then Monday night, I guess I'll wait till next week. So we don't do that with spiritual mind treatment. We don't do that with our spiritual practice. We open up and we start over in each and every moment, because each and every moment is an opportunity to start over. Each and every moment is an opportunity to make a different choice. Each and every moment we find ourselves recognizing that life is like a Baskin Robbins. You get a lot of different flavors, you get a lot of different choices, right? Oh, you know what? I just thought about, I don't know if I've told you. I used to say that if the fairy godmother came and gave me 3 wishes, all 3 of them would be to be locked in Baskin Robbins for the weekend with a teaspoon. So, I don't know where that came from. I digress. But as soon as I said Baskins, I saw myself locked in there with a teaspoon. But at any rate, that's how life is. We have so many choices. We have so many choices, and we can choose over and over and over and over and over again. And then we can choose some more. So it's never too late to start from where you are. It's never too late to start anew. And this is a perfect time for us to be going back to basics with our spiritual practice, because this is springtime. This is a time of renewal. This is a time of starting anew. This is a time of opening up and looking at life through fresh eyes. This is a time of using our spiritual practice and practicing what we know with spiritual mind treatment and other practices anew, starting again, starting all over again. And so now we're starting, we went through recognition. This week, we're looking at the second step of treatment, which is unification. Unification, which means oneness. In recognition, we recognize there's only one power. We recognize there's only one life. We recognize there's only one presence. We recognize there's only one breath. We recognize there's only one activity. We recognize one, one, one. One, one, one in recognition. And as we live that, we see that one everywhere we go. We see that one in every place, in everything. We see that one all around us. We see that one within each of us. And so as we continue with that recognition, and that's a part of practicing the presence of God, is seeing that oneness everywhere. Then we start to recognize, to unify ourselves with God. And that brings me to the topic for today, which is reflection of perfection. A reflection of perfection. Reflection of perfection. God is perfection itself. And to the degree that we can allow every aspect, every part of our being to be God's dwelling place, we can become reflections of that perfection. You know, last week I was sharing with you that if you want to see the face of God, look in your mirror. If you want to see the face of God, look in your mirror. And so when we really practice that unification step, when we really practice that moving into alignment with and recognizing that God and I are one, then that's when we can really look in the mirror and see that we are a transparency for God. Anyone who sees us, you know, Jesus says, those who see me have seen the Father. That's because he knew that he was at one with God. He said the Father and I are one. He wasn't just talking about himself, because he always talked about the things that I do, you can do even greater things. So Jesus was a great example for each of us to recognize that the Father and I are one. The Father and I are one, and that's what we do in the second step of treatment. There's only one power. That power is God. There's only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. That's the unification step. That life is my life now. Take a breath on that. That life is my life now. When I say that life is my life now, that means that there's no separation. Can be no separation. I think it was Meister Eckhart who said that God is closer to us than breathing, nearer to us than hands and feet. Imagine that. Take a breath. And think about the fact that God is closer to us than that breath we just took. God is closer than my hand, nearer than my feet. That's how close God is to us. That's what oneness is all about when we begin to recognize that. So when we start to live in that, when we start to live in that place of knowing, when we start to live the 5 steps of treatment, that's also known as walking in the direction of your prayer work. When we're living the 5 steps, when we're living that recognition, when we're living that unification. When we're living that unification of knowing that God is right where I am right now. And living that, I know that whatever is going on that may be challenging, that may be frightening, that may be wonderful, whatever it is, God is in the midst of it. God is right here, right now. God is right where I am. God is right here within me, always. When we know this truth and really know this truth at a deep level, that's when we really begin to demonstrate and manifest in our lives those things that we desire, those things that we are seeking to dissolve, to have healed in our lives. That awareness, it is the awareness of our oneness with God. It is the awareness, not just the words that we speak about our oneness with God, but our awareness at a deep, deep level. That is the awareness that is creative. Is the awareness of that union that cannot be broken, the awareness that there is no separation, the awareness that there can be no separation. It is that heals. It is that moves us forward. It is that allows us to grow and to expand and to live the kinds of lives we want to live. And so let's take a breath just for a moment and just move into that place of recognition. Just saying, repeat after me, there's only one power. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Okay, let's take a breath. Now I want you to drop down out of your head into your heart. Take a breath and repeat after me. There's only one life. That life is God's life. Take a breath. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. Breathe that in. Can you feel the difference in that? The first time you repeated that, you were talking from your head. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. All head. But when you take that breath and drop down into your heart, you become aware of the presence of God. You can feel the difference. You can feel the connection. You can feel your oneness with God. That's how we get to live in oneness, when we can feel God's presence within us, when we can feel God's presence in the midst of whatever is going on, when we can feel that presence. My teacher used to say that the second step of treatment is the most important step out of the 5. And he said that when you are doing a treatment, when you are praying, when you get to step 2, you don't move until you know that you are one with God. You don't move from step 2 until you know that you and God are one, that God is right where you are. And he says if that takes you minutes, hours, seconds, whatever, you stay there until you know that you are one with God, and you know, you are aware of God's presence right where you are. And then you can speak the word for the 3rd step after you have moved into that place of unification. Because the power is in the knowing. The power is in the oneness. The power, that's where the creativity is. That's where creation happens. And so when I move into that place of knowing that God and I are one, when I move into that place of knowing that God's life is my life, then I'm in that place of being an open space through which God can work as me. That's what the as me means when we talk about God working in, through, and as us. When I am at one with God, and there is no question in my mind, there is no separation anywhere within me, within my consciousness, within my awareness, that's where the power is. That's where the power is. And that's when it's time to speak the word. It doesn't matter what words we say. It's the feeling. It's the awareness. It's the awareness. Ernest Holmes says that the law works on not only on what we say, but on the way we say it. So if we're just saying, like we said when you were repeating after me at first, you were repeating from your head, that the law wouldn't work on that the same way it would work when you're speaking from your heart, when you're speaking from that place of awareness, when you're speaking from that place of knowingness, when you're speaking from that place of truth. And so that's what we have to really move into when we move into a place of unification. When we find ourselves in situations that are challenging, as I said, when we find ourselves in situations that we'd like to have change, we'd like to have healing happen, make sure that we move into that place of unification. That place of knowing God is right where I am. God is right here within me right now. God is right in the midst of the situation right now. Because once we move into God, then everything fades into God. Everything fades into God. Everything fades into God. When we are concerned about problems and challenges and things that come up and we focus on that, then that becomes the issue, the challenge, the problem. But when we can be in a place of awareness, in a place of knowing, in a place of being at one, then we can be in that place of opening up, connecting, letting go of all the other stuff, and everything else dissolves and fades into God. That's how we want to live our lives. That's how we want to live our lives. That's how we want to live in oneness. That's how we get to live in oneness. That's how we get to live our spiritual practice. That's how we get to walk in the direction of our prayer work. Yes, this challenge came up. Yes, I have a particular health challenge or health or diagnosis. Yes, I have financial issues. Yes, I have marital issues. Whatever your case may be that you may be experiencing. And I know that God's in the midst of it all. And I know that God is in the midst of it all. And I am not only recognizing God, I am feeling God's presence. I am aware of God's presence right here, right now, right in the midst. And my focus is on God, and the challenge dissolves. When our focus is on the challenge becomes the God. Because that's where our focus, that's where our recognition is, that's where our attention is. So we breathe it out, we let it go. And we move our focus into that place of oneness, that place of unification, that place of knowing that nothing can separate us. Nothing can separate us. Hafiz once wrote that complaint is only possible when we're living in the suburbs of God. Complaint is only possible when we're living in the suburbs of God. Isn't that something? Complaint is only possible when we're living in the suburbs of God. When we're living at one with God, when we're living in at one-ment, there's nothing to complain about because our whole focus, our whole soul's desire is God, is on God, is focused on that power and that presence within us, that love, that essence of love that is God. We're focused on that healing presence of God. We're focused, our awareness on this healing presence that is always healing anything that needs to be healing, anything that is unlike itself is healed in the total presence of God, the unencumbered presence of God. And so if we can set our intention to let go of those things that separate us, those things that make us feel separate, those things that make us think we're separate. Unforgiveness, old habits, old stories, the past, old labels, arguing for our limitation. You know the yeah buts? Yeah, but. Yeah, but. You ever had someone tell you, you're trying to really help them along and show them a different way, and they go, yeah, but. Or how many times have you done that yourself? When someone is trying to help us through a difficult time, we go, yeah, but you don't understand. My problem is unique. You don't understand. You haven't had this experience like I have. You don't understand. It's just a yeah, but, a yeah, but, a yeah, but. Let's take a breath and just let that yeah, but go. Take a breath and just let that go. Yes, and. Yes, and. Yes, and. God is right here, right now, right where I am, right now. The healing presence of God is in the midst of this situation, whatever it may be. The healing presence of God is always guiding me, directing me. Ernest Holmes says, know that there is an intelligence to which we may come. Notice he didn't say go, he said come. Know that there is a divine intelligence to which we may come for guidance, for direction, for inspiration. A power watching over us, a presence pressing against us, an animation flowing through us, a light within us. And that light is always shining. That light is always on. That light is always showing us the way. That light is always lighting our path to the degree that we are open to it and we are connected with it and we are living in it. Because the light of God is always right where we are. The light of God is always right where we are. And so when we can open up and bring our awareness to the fact that God and I are one, I'm an open channel through which God's light can shine, through which God's light can light my path and the path of all those with whom I come in contact. When we can live that in our daily lives are reflections of that perfection of God's light. Our lives are reflections of that perfection of God's love. When we can love in spite of, when we can love despite, when we can love regardless of, when we can love unconditionally as God loves, that's when we're living in unification. Our lives become a unification. our livingness becomes a unification. And that's what we want, to have our livingness be a unification with God, to have our livingness be a direct reflection of what we believe, what we say we believe, what we talk about, what we espouse when we come through these doors. We say all those cute little phrases that we used to say. I'm one with God. God is all there is. What does that mean? Have you ever asked yourself, what does that mean? What do I mean when I say that? Do I really mean that? Do I really mean that life is my life now? Am I really living like I know that life of God is my life right now? And that life of God is working in and through and as me right now? Because God can only work as me to the degree that I'm open to allow God to work as me, to allow God to show up as me. But when I'm closed, when I'm just a little bit open, there's only so much God can do. God doesn't knock down the door. God seeks openings. God is always seeking an opening for expression. Let us be those openings. Let our lives, our entire being, be those dwelling places so that we can be that reflection of the perfection that is, so that we can live this thing called spiritual mind treatment. It's a living, breathing, dynamic tool, powerful tool for healing. It's a living, breathing, powerful tool for life and for living. We have it right here in the palm of our hands. Let's use it. Let's live it right here and right now, because that's where God is, right here and right now. And so when we live that way, like we know that God is right here, right now, then we can have the kinds of lives we want to live. We can have a life that is filled with the perfection that already is. The perfection that already is. We don't have to create perfection. It already is. God is already perfect. We just want to allow that perfection to reveal itself in and through and as our lives. That's how our lives become reflections of that perfection. And so I invite you this week, I invite you to open up and to really allow any sense of separation that you may have to fall away. When you find yourself engaging in behaviors that separate, judgment, blame, shame, guilt, regrets, all that kind of stuff that we get caught up in, when we find ourselves getting caught up in that, take a breath, step back, recognize the presence of God, and then unify with it. Because just as that power and that presence of God is within me, that power and that presence of God is within the other person. That power and that presence of God is within each of us. And we have to recognize, first of all, that God is there, and then recognize it's right within each person, just as it's right within each of us. And so I'm inviting you to really practice that this week. And that heals any sense of separation we have from ourselves, from God, from ourselves, and from each other. Because the power and the presence of God is right where we are, always. Always. So let's take a breath, and let's just turn within in this moment. Let's open our hearts, open our minds, open our entire being to that perfection that already is. That perfection that already is, that perfection that knows no bounds, that perfection that always is right where we are. That perfection is the only perfection that is, and that is the one life, the one power, the one presence, the one mind, the one breath, the one activity that is God. That one is my very life. That one is my very life. That one is my very life. That one is the life of each one of us here this day. That life is the life of everyone we meet, wherever we are, whatever's going on, whatever the appearance may be. That life is the only life that is. And so just knowing this truth, moving into this place of awareness, moving into this place of oneness, moving into this place of releasing any sense of separation, I can speak this word in this moment for each of us. Speaking a word of oneness. Knowing that as we move into that place of oneness, knowing that allness, that fullness of God, that presence of God is closer to us than our breathing, is nearer than hands and feet. That presence of God is right here, right now, right where I am. It is my very life. It is the life of each of us. And as we stand in this truth, all else fades into God. All else fades into nothingness, no thingness. And it is from this place that I call forth love and peace and harmony and balance and joy and forgiveness and compassion. Healing on every level of our being. I call that forth for each of us right now. Healing in the body temple, healing in our body of affairs, healing on this planet, in our worlds, in our relationships. Healing where anything that is unlike that radiant presence of God is uprooted, released, and let go. I know this healing is happening everywhere for each of us. And that love and more love is the order of the day in our lives. So as I open this circle of prayer this morning, I pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak their names silently or loud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that right where each of them is, God is. Right where they are, God is. Blessing and keeping each one, healing each one. Wholeness is revealing itself in each and every life. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day. No matter what the facts may be, the truth is that God is in the midst. And that wholeness is revealing itself everywhere, even when it doesn't look like it. And so I just say thank you, Father, Mother God, for the blessings of this day, for the blessing of this time. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for our realization of our reflection of the perfection that already is. Thank you, infinite presence, for everything. I'll just allow it to be now. And so it is.